While others celebrate the wins,
Yes.
We celebrate the mud.
each episode has a special guest.
Tony-nominated actress, Broadway's Lily Cooper.
Tashir Zameda.
David A. Gregory.
Getting messy with muddy topics.
We are going to be talking about grief journey.
With hilarious moments
Now get over here.
And deep conversations.
I'm ashamed to even admit this, but this is what happened.
This is Into the Mud.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to Into the Mud podcast. While others celebrate the wins.
We celebrate the mud. We are coming to you from the Barrow Room at the Mullen in the West Village. I'm Alex Cumin,
I'm Drew King.
and we're here with our wonderful guest today, Henry Sir.
Hello.
Yay.
Hey, guys. Hi. Thanks for having me.
Henry.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming in.
Of course.
Henry, you and I know each other through the comedy scene here. We met like last year, probably
Yeah.
around this time.
I think it probably maybe it was just a little bit earlier, like in the summer, but in and around here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have, so you're a Canadian.
I am.
You're an immigrant.
One of
Yes,
those.
we love the Canadians.
We love a
Do we?
Canadian.
Okay.
We love the Canadians.
How can you
We love the
not?
Canadians.
Yeah.
You guys are so just,
For the most part, yeah. I think so. Yeah.
You guys keep it
Yeah.
real. But you were an all Canadian basketball player.
Oh yeah.
That's amazing.
I mean,
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, for how long?
So just in college, I was, so I come from like a basketball family, and my
Okay.
dad's American. He played a long time. He played professionally. My oldest brother played in the States. One of my other brothers and I, we both played in Canada. So I've always kind of been like, all Canadian, whatever. But I was pretty good. My last year, I was first team all conference and all Canadian. My last year of college.
I have
That's
no idea what
amazing.
that means for non-sports people. Define what that means, because I feel like it's a really big deal, and I, in my ignorance, don't know.
It's probably, at the time, it was probably, I guess you could argue, a bigger deal than I let myself give myself
That's
credit
a very
for.
big deal.
Can we give you a minute to brag? We're going to give you free reign to brag about your stats as a basketball
Sure.
player, because
Yeah.
it sounds very accomplished, and I want people to be
Yeah.
aware.
So essentially, you have like your conference that you play in, and if you're first team, but there's multiple conferences through the country. So if you're first team all conference, it's just in your specific one. If you're all Canadian, it's all the conferences
Okay.
of all the countries. It's the same thing it would be like for an all American, just in Canada. It was cool. Like
Who are like some of the all-American, I feel like all-American like football player, like you, like,
yeah.
like,
But that's
We know
the,
nothing about sports.
No, but it's such a it's truly is such a difference between America and Canada that
Oh,
I
really?
do
Okay.
need to. It's not even self-deprecating. It's just like I need to qualify that
Okay.
it's not the same.
Okay.
I was
It's
a
still
good
a big deal.
basketball player. I was
Yes.
a good college basketball player. I did have some, mainly through my oldest brother who played professionally. I had some like low-level talks with some professional teams in Europe, but it would have been like essentially semi-pro kind of thing, which is cool.
Still,
Still-
yeah.
still-
I don't mean
amazing.
it as like a negative thing. I do need to be clear.
wanna
It's not like I
qualify.
was on the cusp of
Yeah.
doing it for a handsome living or anything like
Who
that.
did your father play for in the States?
Okay, so he's from Iowa. He played at Winona State. Then he was actually the player of the year in the Belgian Professional League.
yeah. And,
That's
and your
fucking
brother, isn't one of your brothers in, like,
He's still playing in Mongolia.
Yes.
He turns 42.
What?
Jeez. He's nuts.
yeah.
Yeah.
Are you all tall?
Yeah, I'm the tallest, which is because I'm only 6'5". By basketball, I know
Only.
that's no, but by basketball standards, it's like
Okay.
I would have loved to have been 6'8". And we're
Would've
like
loved-
all like
you and me
6'3"
both,
to 6'5".
sister.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know?
Wow. I mean,
could've been?
I would like to be 6'8".
Yeah.
I need 8 more inches.
I know.
But that was kind of a gay joke. That was terrible. Not where I meant it to go. Anyway, okay, that's amazing. So you've had this incredible career in
Incredible
basketball.
career in basketball,
And
and then comedian and writer, and you've done JFL, and you've done Comedy Central and the CBC, and you have an upcoming album, Mr. Sir, to be released in 2025.
Yeah, I'm doing that. I'm recording it in November at this club in Victoria in BC.
Yeah.
And actually through Lenny Marcus, going to be going through him when it gets all edited and stuff. Will be coming out next year. So something to look forward to, I think.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
on this
Love
crazy.
that.
Yeah. It's good to have the actual tangible things to be like,
Yeah.
I am doing this thing and I'm not just toiling in the wind, you know?
Totally.
It's a
Yeah.
comedy album?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yes. Yeah.
So exciting.
Yeah,
So
thank
exciting.
you.
And we'll,
Thanks.
we'll make
Hopefully
sure.
I can stomach listening to it. We'll see. That'll be a whole
I know.
other
Isn't
thing.
that the like, listen back to your material?
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Eek, eek, eek.
Well, that brings us pretty beautifully to our topic for today, which is, it sounds like you have a very interesting life. You've had a lot of fun, like amazing things that you have done. And also you wanted to talk today about having a fear of happiness, which as I was kind of like researching questions and stuff to ask during this, I was like, oh man, this feels really applicable to like where I'm at, where I think a lot of people are at. Talk to us a little bit, just like broadly about like where this fear of happiness, like how does it manifest? Where does it come from? Is it new? Is it old? It's a lot of questions at once.
No,
but
it's,
yeah.
I mean, it's I was thinking about it more too. I was like, man, this just is applicable to like everything in my life. And it comes in big and small ways. I'd say it's mainly the small ways that culminate and snowball into big things, if that makes sense. I think when I was a kid, up until 12, there's very like concrete timelines in this, but I was always kind of I was a little neurotic and I had anxious tendencies. I had obsessive tendencies. I could get moody, but I was, for the most part, fairly well adjusted. There were some things I look back, I'm like, cognitively, I'm not sure I was entirely all there, but I was a fairly well adjusted kid who liked life. I remember I had like a pretty healthy view of myself up till 12, and then my family moved to Minnesota from Edmonton, and I still honestly don't fully know why I've suppressed so much of this, and I'm just now 24 years later starting to unpack a lot of it. But it's like truly like a switch in my brain went off, and it was like a actual personality shift. Like I just got so overcome and overwhelmed with depression, like really heavy duty depression and obsessive compulsive disorder, that I literally had to be pulled out of school. And I like, it sounds dramatic. It's not hyperbole. Like I literally gave up the will to live. Like my brain kind of shut off. I stopped eating. As a 12-year-old, I lost 45 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
Lost a third of my body weight. And there was like, and my body shut down. Like I couldn't sweat, couldn't use the bathroom, couldn't grow my hair. They thought like I wouldn't grow again. And there was like a real chance like I was gonna die. And we moved back, and there's other things, but then it kind of, I started feeling a little more of myself, and I was just like, okay, that happened. We don't need to talk about it. Let's just move on. I'm good. It happened. Don't worry about it. Now, as I look back in life, I realized that was like the first part where, there's a long-winded way of getting there, but I think like I had a pretty happy childhood. Then it just felt that lens, that way of looking through life was just gone. And now there was just so much sadness with it. And since then, I think I've had a pretty serious fear of letting go and feeling good about life, because more often than not, it's just my mind gets in my own way, be it depression, anxiety, or OCD, or more recently, losing one of my brothers. And it was at a time where I was actually really starting to make tangible progress and like feeling good about life. And then literally like within weeks, my one brother passed away. And I kind of went all the way back to square one from when I was a 12-year-old, if that makes sense. A lot.
Absolutely.
It's heavy.
We welcome it.
Yeah, it's muddy.
We welcome it. It's very muddy.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Of course.
And you and I have talked about this at length, because this is also fairly recent. This happened in the last.
Yeah, April. It's been a year and a half. It's late April of 2022.
Because I remember when we met, it was not that long out. It was probably a few months after. And I remember meeting you for the first time and being like, I can't believe he's like functioning as a human being right now. Like that. And it is a lot. And okay, so, because I was going to ask if this fear of happiness, did it start after the passing of your brother, or did it get amplified by it? And it sounds like probably amplified by it, that was already a thing that
yeah, it was definitely amplified. It was always there. Like I've mainly struggled like clinically with OCD and depression, but then when I was 18, I started struggling with general anxiety too, and that's when I just felt more of this and not really seeing in this framework at the time, but like too afraid to feel good about things, because when you feel good, that's when you have things to lose. And it's not easy being depressed. It's not easy being miserable. But when you get used to it, and you kind of just like succumb to it in a weird, messed up way, it is easier because it's so dark and pessimistic and doom and gloom that you're just like, whatever. And then when you actually open yourself up to hope and optimism and positivity, that fear of that being taken away and falling back into that awful mindset and pit, it's really scary. So I would have times where all of a sudden I start feeling really good about life, and then my anxiety would just flare up.
I want to ask what it feels like because I think especially now we throw, oh, I'm so depressed or I'm so anxious. Everyone is throwing that around.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us do feel depression and anxiety.
Absolutely.
And it sounds like you have been struggling with it on a more severe level for a very long time. And I'm interested to hear how this manifests for you. Like what does like a day-to-day look like for you, or like what are some of the biggest struggles in dealing with OCD, depression, anxiety?
So it's always there. When I feel like I have it all in check for the most part, there's still little things, especially with even now when I'm so used to it, it's so hard to put into words. But I feel like they all feed into the other. Like when my OCD gets really bad, it really impacts my depression. And the worse my depression gets, the more it feeds into my OCD. And it's just this horrible cycle. And it's so much like rituals, magic thinking, or whatever it's called, that I know isn't going to make anything better or alleviate anything, but my brain is convincing me you have to do X, Y, and Z, as silly and nonsensical as it is, otherwise something terrible will happen. I've been back, I went off probably objectively the worst decision I've ever made is when I was 24 and I was just falling into like another really bad bit of depression. I was like, well, if I'm gonna feel this way, I don't even need to go on meds. So after 12 years, I just, without talking to anyone, cold turkey, went off meds. After that's how I functioned my entire adult life. And I like literally lost my mind. Like it was ugly, and like everything was hard. I felt this need that I had to control everything, but I also knew I can't control anything. So instead, I'll just sit in nothing. I avoided going outside. I avoided talking to people. I avoided socializing. I would just like sit in a room and like wait for the time to pass so I could go to bed and be like, all right, dodged another bullet today. And it would be like going to bed, I'd need to wash my hands the right way, walk the certain route to my bed, and then it became I needed to have the right thoughts, then it became the right sequence of thoughts, and if it went off that, I just had to repeat it over and over and again. So truly, it was something as simple as brushing your teeth and going into bed would take me sometimes like 2 hours. I'd be trying to go to bed, and I wouldn't be able to get to bed till like 2 a.m. And when it's not that intense, it still is more just, you know, there's just a sense of sadness. Even when I'm not feeling that down, there's just this kind of somber feeling I more often than not have. And I can understand better now. They're just thoughts. Good or bad, nothing is based off you acting out the ritual or compulsion you feel for this thought. But they're always there. Sometimes they're screaming, sometimes it's just kind of whispering, but they are always there. And it can make just very everyday tasks incredibly challenging just because your mind won't stop. Your mind just will not shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Totally.
You similarly think that the root of, or not that you think, but hypothetically the root of a lot of those compulsions is the fear that something will go wrong if you don't get them done.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it's something catastrophic will happen if I don't do X, Y, and Z, or if I let my foot off the gas with this really stressful, not enjoyable way of living, something terrible happened. And it just makes no sense because it's not a fun way to live.
Of course,
The
yeah.
day-to-day existence is brutal, but you're thinking somehow out of fear, like the alternative's worse. And that's like the trick your brain can play on you. Like that's what it did when I was 12.
Of course.
It convinced me like it's in your best interest if you just stop eating. If you give up, like that's what you should do. And it's been really eye-opening to really reframe it that way, and it's easier to kind of look at myself with kindness with instead of just like, geez, what a little freak. But truly, it's like a malfunction. It's when people say like they're broken. Again, it sounds so dramatic and like hyperbole, but it's like, no, it's not working the way it's designed to work. It has malfunctioned, and that's happened to me a good chunk of times in my life where it's been like a really severe episode where I just fall off the rails. And honestly, my brother passing and moving to New York coincided with each other literally within weeks.
Oh.
So
Well, you also had, wasn't that your Comedy Central?
yeah.
What was the order of that?
Yeah.
It was,
So to talk about the like fear of letting go and fear of being happy, this was like a huge thing for me my whole adult life. And then it's not to say I was like, I'm a finished product, I'm great, but there were so many things that I'd let go of and felt like I was finally getting over in a really, really tangible way. And I just felt so excited about it. And I was living in LA at the time, but I did this trip. I was going out east to do clubs in Ottawa and Toronto, but first I stopped here. I got booked on Comedy Central and passed at Gotham in that one night. And it was cool. Like I did a show with like Jim Gaffigan and Seinfeld. And then the next day I got passed at the Cellar, went and did these amazing clubs these 2 weeks, came back, did some Cellar spots, was set to do the Comedy Central thing. And I'm just, for the first time in like my career as a comic, I remember talking to my wife, I'm like, this was the right decision. Like it's all working out. And then the day before Comedy Central, I got the news that my brother died. And it was like my brain was like, I told you, this is what happens when you let your guard down. You can't be happy because this is what's going to happen. And while I knew, I was like, well, that's not the truth. When it's being presented to you that way after literal decades of that being how the neural pathways are firing, I was just like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. And it feels hopeless,
Absolutely.
you know?
can you talk to us about what it was like having to do, because you did this set.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
the
I
day
did.
Oh my
before you
gosh.
found out.
Yeah.
And it's like, reminds me of when your mom passed and
Yeah.
you went right
Yeah,
into
right into
Jesus
a
Christ
show, yeah.
Superstar.
Mm.
And what was happening in your mind?
Yeah, it was obviously
Shock.
It was shock. Like it was so strange because I was like prepping for it, and I was doing some don't tell shows in Santa Barbara, and my wife was with me, her mom and two of our best friends from Edmonton who also lived in LA were there, and we just had the nicest time. And we got back, and then I find out that whole day we had the nicest time, Ben was dead. And I got the call from my brother Sam, and it was one of those things where like my wife woke up and she was like, I've missed a few calls from your brother. And then I looked and he was calling me, and immediately I was like, well, someone's dead. And I picked it up, and he told me, awful. And but it was, and I was thinking like, well, I can't do the set. I'm not going to do the set. And I told my family, like, I'm not going to do it. My brother Ben was like, he was a writer, he was a musician. He really was like, outside my wife, probably my biggest supporter. And my family was like, he'd want you to do this. He'd be so upset if you didn't do it. And there was the part of me, I'm like, I mean, the people at Comedy Central are cool, but I just have such a distrust in this industry as a whole that I'm like, I wanted to be like, can I just do the next one? But I was afraid they'd be like, sure. And then I'll just never hear from them again.
You can't trust it, yeah.
And so I did it, and I feel like I was just sleepwalking through it. I cried a little bit, but honestly, I was really worried for a few hours because I don't cry much, but I was like, okay, if I don't cry, I'm a psychopath because my brother, who I'm very close with and love very, very much, is gone, and I'm not crying. And I had some like tears come out, and then I went through it, did the set, felt very like that was okay at best. Still haven't watched it. I have no interest in watching it. But I was like, well, apparently I'm emotionally invincible. So I guess I'll just keep going about business as usual. And then someone had asked me, they were like, hey, can you come do a spot tomorrow at the show? I was like, sure. And then on my way over, I was like, you know what? Let me play his music, and I just started bawling my eyes out, like screaming, like had to pull over, like screaming in my car, punching the steering wheel, like didn't know that level of sobbing even existed. So that's all to say, I kind of just was sleepwalking through it, and on one hand being like, yeah, cool, this is something I've wanted to do for a long time and I'm psyched I'm doing it, but also who fucking cares? This means less than nothing. And that's been a really repeating theme of this past year. It's not like anything astronomical, but for me, things like doing New Faces, that working clubs I've wanted to work as long as I've been doing stand-up, leveling up in certain ways and just being like, it doesn't mean a fucking thing. And that's been a bummer. And that's another part of that, not letting myself be happy or feeling incapable of feeling happy. And then beating myself up, like, how are you not fucking happy? This is what you wanted. You're doing it.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's such a contradiction, though, your mental health compared to your career. And then also, we are entertainers, and we come from this, we all work in this industry where you have to present a certain quality of yourself that is entertaining to other people.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about it is that makes them happy, like, and makes them laugh.
The show must go on.
The show must go
Totally.
on. So what is, I'm curious, like, that's such a paradox, especially for you as a comedian. What does it feel like to have these very serious and real heavy feelings that you're going through, and you're kind of constantly having to navigate every day and mitigate risk every single day, but then similarly go out on stage and make other people laugh? Does that make you, does it give you like a bit of a boost or a serotonin boost? It must kind of like secretly be like, but okay, like here's a little bit of a happiness hit. Like what does that feel like for you?
It did for a bit, honestly, at first, because like I said, moving to New York almost happened simultaneously with that. And at first, I think there was a lot of merit to it because it kept me busy, it kept me distracted, I guess, and it was a boost. I was feeling good considering what happened, that I could do these things that I've really wanted to do for a while now. And say, like, going up at this cellar, I was like telling myself, like, this is the most fun you might ever have doing stand-up. Nobody here knows who you are. They're not cheering because they're excited to see you. If your set goes really well, it's like that was just like a pleasant surprise. You really earned that, and that there's something really beautiful about that. And then about a year since Ben's passing, I could tell, like I was very much suppressing. Even though I was talking about it, I thought I was trying to deal with it, I was suppressing so much. And it got to this point where I was having this one weekend, I was like, it was amazing. It was doing exactly what I've wanted to do, like the best spots in New York at great clubs in front of audiences, telling jokes. I'm like, I think these are good and they're going well. And while I'm doing it, again, just that, like, who fucking cares? The entertaining thing, I was like, I don't care. I don't want to entertain anyone right now. And that's a tough thing in the entertainment business, to be like, I want to perform, but I don't want to have to perform for you. I want to do the thing that is technically entertainment, but I could not give less of a shit if a bunch of strangers and tourists are into these jokes that I've rehearsed before. This just feels so stupid. And I think I could have been doing anything and probably would have felt just this like hollow emptiness from it, because everything just felt so insignificant. So for a while was great. After a while, complete opposite of great. Yeah.
I want to comment on that really quick. Do you feel that might be permanent, or do you think it's still in the midst of this grief? I kind of want to, I haven't lost a sibling, but I've lost parents and all my aunts and uncles, everyone's dead. But
sorry.
No, it's life. Thank you. I appreciate that. Course. However, but point being is, loss and grief puts a lot of shit in perspective.
Oh boy.
Especially when you're in entertainment. And I had a similar circumstance where the day my mom died on like a Wednesday, and the next day I had a final callback for this theater that actually, funny enough, I just finished working at this year. It was my last time auditioning for them, was in 2018. And the final callback was the next day. And I hadn't slept in like a week because I was like in the hospital with my mom. But I was like, I have to go to this audition. She would have wanted me there. My siblings were like, do it. Mom would have wanted you to go. Like, go book it. And I was like, okay. So I like rallied and I went to this callback that I was there from like 9 a.m. till 7 p.m. It was the longest day of my life. And I was with every musical theater person who is like, ooh, I'm dancing and I'm acting and I'm singing and show tunes and musicals. And I was like, I fucking hate musical theater. I fucking hate musical theater right now. I hate it. I want nothing to do with this. Why the fuck am I here? I was like, everything's lost. My mom died. We're all just gonna fucking die. So what's the point of having a dream that you're pursuing? Everyone's gonna die, is how I felt. And I felt that way for a long time. And there is a part of me that I think that was a big part of my shift in my personal career transition, where I was like, I think I kind of lost a little bit of that spark. It happens that when really heavy, hard, dark things happen that shatter your heart beyond like repair, or that chapter of your heart will never be fixed again, you do lose a little bit of the sparkle, shall we say.
Absolutely.
So I hope that for you that like some of that does come back.
I hope so too. I do hope so, because it very much has gone away in a pretty, not entirely, but in a pretty big way. Like what I wanted to do was like, I just wanted to go back to Edmonton for an indefinite amount of time, but I kind of felt like with the things lining up here, I was like, a guy like me, I can't afford to. I feel like I have to strike while the iron's hot.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, sure, career-wise, that makes sense. Personally, don't know how much sense it really made. And then it got to the point after that year of being here where we just went back to Edmonton for like 5 weeks and took a bit of a breather. And so it wasn't a break. I was still doing stand-up, but I will be honest, I just have more of that. And it's always been in me. Thoughts that I've been trying to fight and combat, like, stop being so cynical, stop being so negative. But now they're just louder. Again, they're like, who cares, dude? Like, if you go up on stage and like, man, I murdered, like, sweet. Did it fill the void? No.
Yeah.
You know, and just this kind of pursuit of, at all costs, this obsessive, addictive relationship I have with stand-up has never felt more insignificant.
Wow.
Never felt so, it's just impossible to not question, like, how the fuck am I not back in Canada? How am I not around my surviving brothers, my family, their kids, my best friends? It's like I'm sacrificing all of that to do this thing that sometimes fulfills me, but other times I let it just cause me pain and make me feel like complete shit about myself. And when I feel good, cool, great, but those are fewer and far between. Like I was doing this festival in Canada. It's called the Winnipeg Comedy Festival. It's a CBC thing. For Canada, it's great. Like, you're doing this really beautiful theater in Winnipeg. And I was on the phone with my wife before, like, the cognitive distortions were just so heavy, where I was like on the phone with her being like, yeah, so, you know, I'm an objective failure. Every decision I've ever made was the wrong decision, and I'm the worst comedian that's ever lived. And then I like get the text. It's like, hey, your Uber for your theater taping is downstairs. Can you please go? I was like, oh, right. None of that's occurring to me. It's all just negativity and sadness.
Yeah.
When you were home for this 5 weeks,
Yeah.
was there stuff that did like what are the things, if any, that do light you up currently? Like, are there things that you, because I think a maybe less extreme way, I'm having similar like stand up. We've talked about this,
Yeah,
just like
totally.
with like, I'm feeling overwhelmed. It's not giving me as much joy as it used to. And I had to, you got to take a step back sometimes and be like, what do I love about this?
Yeah.
And when it doesn't, comedy often, or the entertainment industry often does not love you back.
Oh my God.
It does
all.
not, it does not matter how much love you pour into it, because it does not love you back 100% of the time, which is a really hard thing to wrap your head around.
Totally.
But there are some aspects that I love about it. And then in taking little breaks, there are other things that I'm like, this is not the only thing that matters in life. So what are the other things that you love? So I'm interested to hear what are some of the,
Yeah. Well, when I'm doing it less, this is everything. My entire well-being is dictated by the amount of spots I'm doing, the quality and the quantity of spots I'm doing. When I'm not viewing it that way, and it's like, oh yeah, I have this really great show tonight, I still really do enjoy stand-up. So sometimes I still actually do really get a lot from that. I myself, though, honestly, just very basic things. Being outside, nature is huge. Just going for walks, honestly, in the woods, being surrounded by trees, being surrounded by nature, very simple, leisurely things like that go a really long way for me. Things that make me feel connected to my brother. I play a lot of music. I play guitar a lot. He was a guitar player of music, something we really shared with each other. And like these tattoos I have are all in honor and memory of him. And I got, like, intentionally got them here so that when I'm playing guitar, like, I see them and I kind of, like, you know, feel Ben with me a little bit. Not to sound like some, you know, hippy dippy psychonaut kind of guy, but honestly, I try to do a pretty intense mushroom trip every couple months, and it goes.
You're on the right podcast.
Yeah. It goes a long way for me for like a reset and just remembering, like, it's all okay, man. And while both things can be true, the loss of Ben is so hard, and all the context within it. Like, the poor guy just suffered so much in life and had a really hard go with life, and that should cause sadness. But considering what's happened, that's not okay, but you do have to keep going forward. And the comedy stuff, the trying to check this arbitrary box and that arbitrary box, you can also do those things too, but it doesn't have to dictate whether you're a worthwhile person or not. And it's those little things of just taking my dog for a walk with my wife, going to Prospect Park, just getting together with my other brothers, seeing their kids, just sitting out in a backyard reading a book, honestly. Little things like that go such a long way.
I love that, all of that. Are you also in doing therapy and all that?
I am trying to find someone better, because I was, and it's I think he was okay. It wasn't getting enough done. And I didn't feel like I'm taking steps back to move forward. Like, after sessions, I'd just be like, that didn't do anything.
That didn't do anything.
And I just feel worse now. Yeah.
I was just talking to a friend recently about dialectic behavior therapy, which is a form of cognitive behavioral therapy that looks very intensely at, and I don't want to butcher this, so we will put it in the show notes, but DBT is supposed to be very helpful for when you're having really, like, extreme, extreme emotions, which I think obviously anyone would have after what happened. And I keep going back to, like, how I would still be in a huge state of grief if I think a sibling is I think anyone close to you passing is awful. A sibling is a different kind of grief that I want you to know that, like, I don't think I could do stand up for a long time after. I don't think I would be happy for a very long time. So I want you to give yourself some grace in terms of like keep pursuing the things that are giving you that happiness, like getting outside, doing like however small the act is, like, because it's a thing that I cannot even wrap my head around.
And there are times when I'm able, and I appreciate that, and there are times I'm able to be like, I can for a moment process it in a healthier way of, like, you know, keep doing what you're doing. Don't feel like it has to follow this blueprint, because again, it's just so arbitrary. But just keep doing what you're doing and live. Like, let yourself enjoy those, prioritize the little things too while doing this. And there's moments where I'm like, yeah, I'll do all that. It's gonna be fine. But then the doom and gloom kicks in again, and that it's so easy to be like, everything's gonna work out. It's all gonna work out. But then you look at someone like my brother, and it's like, well, sometimes it doesn't. And then the negativity is so much louder than the positivity of just being like, abort, quit. It's you're bad, you suck, it's never gonna happen. And it's a struggle, but I do agree with you, and I'm doing a better job lately of giving myself the grace to be like, well, yeah, of course you feel this way. It's going to take time. It's going to take more time. This is going to be a forever kind of thing.
Thank you for triggering that in my brain. DBT is all about learning to accept that two things can be true at once. So, like, it is a huge struggle, and what happened to Ben was an awful thing, and I can keep doing, like, just holding space for two truths which can be contradictory when you think about it, or like not in line with how, you know, we're kind of taught to think. We're like, no, you either do one or the other. It's like, but it's just holding those two, even if they're opposing, right? They're holding them in the same cup, I guess.
Totally.
We just talked in the last episode a little bit about like what should we be wanting in life or what should we not be wanting in life. And there's a lot of, in mental health and in grief, there's a lot of shoulds. There's a lot of I should be happier with this thing that's happening. That's great in life. Or I should be over this now. Or I should be crying. Or I shouldn't be crying. There's such this like storm that comes up of shoulds.
Totally.
And so it makes sense to me that comedy a lot of the time right now is not bringing joy. You're still like deeply in the grief of it all.
My God. In the weeds.
Yeah, in the weeds. And that's also an externally validating thing. That like career is an external validation for all of us. Oh my gosh. And I think it's actually on par. It makes a lot of sense because the external validating things that we want in life become significantly less important in the face of losing someone that you really love and care for so deeply. So that's why I actually think it's really beautiful, and it feels like you're a little bit right on track, that the things that are bringing you joy right now are the simple things that really make life valuable. Yeah. It's walking your dog. It's being with your family. Totally. It's being just sitting in the woods. Totally. That's so much more appealing and comforting and joyful and validating in life than booking the Comedy Central or booking a Broadway show, or because then it's a should. I should be happy for this externally validating thing instead of we should be, or we can and should be happy and with the little simple things that make life meaningful and valuable. If that resonates.
Absolutely. I really found like all the things you hear about grief, you're like, well, I believe that, until you really experience, you're like, oh, that's what you're talking about. And I found like contrasting things both being true with grief are huge. Like with my brother, for example, when it first happened, like anger towards him while simultaneously complete empathy, sadness, and love. And with what you're talking about, truly could have never given less of a shit about external validation, but have also never career-wise depended more on external validation.
Yes,
and
it's
so
such a paradox.
It's that tough thing of being like, this is all so kind of meaningless, and that being okay. It doesn't even have to be met with so much negativity. It's just like, oh, it doesn't actually matter.
Literally means
but if this is going to happen, or if that's going to happen, whether it's this booker or that booker or some, you know, production thing or the algorithm on social media, it's like you need all this external validation in entertainment. And there's so many things like that. Like my empathy for the down and out, people struggling with like addiction, people on the street. I've always had a ton of empathy for them, but it's never been higher. And my lack of empathy for trivial bullshit has never been so non-existent. It's just so many things like that, polar opposite things clashing with each other and them both being true. Yeah,
I love it. And to me, it feels like you're right on track then. Like that's where you should be.
That's like, encouraging.
As that to me just sounds like, okay, there's quality in here. Like there's a good heart, like you're a good person. Like,
oh, thanks.
Well,
that makes any sense. Just,
absolutely. And what I also loved here, like, it's not like you're here saying like, I hate stand up right now and I never want to do it again.
Yeah.
There is a part of you that's like, I want to find that spark. I want to come back to this. I want to find meaning in it. And right now it's the rain cloud is the only thing you can see because it's a fucking heavy rain cloud. That doesn't mean that the sun is not behind it. It just means that you are experiencing a particularly ravaging storm in your life right now, which a year after the passing of your brother is absolutely understandable.
Totally.
On top of any other mental health stuff that you were already dealing with.
That's the thing. Already pretty. It's one of those things with depression too, where like I'm more just open and less qualifying it anymore. Because as a kid when I was depressed and growing up, it was still met with that kind of like, what's your problem?
Yeah.
Like, what are you upset about? And like I joke about on stage, but truly the amount of times like, you're tall. You're good at basketball. Like you can't be depressed. Like, I'm sorry. And then you just kind of like bury it in. And then if people talk to you about it, you're kind of like, no, I know. Because you'll probably just say I'm being dramatic or something. Whereas now it's like, no, fuck all that, man. It's so real. It's so real. And it's so hard. And it's so difficult. And then you throw grief on top of it. It's terrible. So none of it is any kind of like bitter thing with comedy of like, I should be doing this or I should be doing that. It's nothing like that.
No,
it's more
no.
just coming to terms with the world, how the world really works, how much of it is just nonsensical, unfair, arbitrary bullshit.
Yeah.
And it would be naive and ignorant to pretend what we do isn't under that umbrella too. Correct. And it's frustrating. It can be sad and it can be like, what am I doing? But it can also be liberating of like, all right, well then let go of all these preconceived notions of what could or should be. Like, it's all just random shit.
It's random. It's unfair. There is no sense or order to it.
No.
It just happened. And so I think acceptance of that.
Yeah.
As saying that as someone who acceptance of it. Oh, I haven't accepted that yet.
No,
but
totally.
it's like, but it's the place that you want to be.
Totally.
I think as long as you keep pointing your ship towards the place where you want to be, which is a place of hope or happiness or whatever it
Yeah.
is, like that's such a good place to be at, to your point of
Yeah.
like, you seem to be right on track in the sense of like you're having an awful time.
Yeah.
You had a really awful thing happen, and so
Totally.
it's like so much easier to be like just stop. You should be done grieving. You
No,
do, or you
totally.
should be done feeling
Totally.
sad, or you're
Yeah.
X, Y, and Z, so you don't deserve to be depressed. Whatever it is, it's like the reality is this is where you're at. This is how you feel. So like accept it, move from that place,
Yeah.
and keep pursuing that hope.
Yeah.
Keep pursuing the things that make
Totally.
you feel good.
It might just be semantics, but I like the it's not moving on, but it is moving forward. Like I can never move on from someone as significant to me as my brother Ben, but I don't have a choice. Like for my own sake, for my wife's sake, I have to. And yeah, I mean, I'm trying. I think with time, I'll get more into the stand-up stuff again. But I also think, and I don't know, this stuff can change, but I'm looking forward to recording my album just so I can be like, God, I'm glad I'm done with that shit, because I don't want to, this stuff doesn't interest me anymore. And I'm already like writing stuff, and we've talked about this too, of the more like one-man show thing where I would really like to incorporate more music, because I'm so over the thought of like, what if comedians say I'm hacky because I take up guitar? Like, oh, so the guy who humps the stool and asks everyone what city they're from and then makes fun of the city thinks I'm a hack? Like, cool, that's fine.
We love crowd work.
No, exactly. So like I do have some, amidst the sadness and the pain of it all, there is some sense of like, I think maybe while stand-up will be the main vehicle, I kind of just want to veer in different directions with it. And if it's like commercially viable, cool. And if it's not, like, that's also cool too, because you want to make a living and everything, but also like I sometimes it's an unhealthy way, and other times it feels more like a healthy way of just like, who cares, man? Who cares?
We just talked about this on the last episode as well, but we've talked about it a bunch of like, again, where you feel like you should be at a certain point in your career. And I think like, I don't know why we have this obsession with like, you got to lock in and you're like early to mid 20s, and then like that's your path forever. And it's like, it's okay if stand up is not what you want to do right now.
Right.
Like,
Totally.
I will give you permission
Yeah.
to not do it.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that you're saying I will never do it again. I don't like it anymore. It's just, if it's not loving you back right now and you need something that loves you back, then go pursue that, And like,
I agree.
It's fully okay to put something down that is not working for you right now.
Totally.
And we've talked about the solo show route, which
Yeah.
is exactly where I'm at with
Yeah.
it, where I'm like, I need a place where I don't have to be the clown
Right.
nonstop, because I want to talk about some serious stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And hopefully that will get me to the next stage where I'm ready to be the clown again,
Sure.
but I can't be 100% clown now.
Totally.
I'm not
Yeah.
at that point in my life anymore.
Totally.
Yeah.
100%.
It feels false and put upon. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I selfishly want to talk about mushrooms.
Please.
Unselfishly, let's go
Yeah,
right
and
now.
I mean, we need to have a full episode about this at
Yeah.
some point in time. But I'm curious about it with you when it comes to depression and grief and mushrooms. And have you found catharsis in it?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, because I have too.
Same.
And it does feel like a magical thing. But it's been born out of bad trips. My past two trips have been awful trips. I've never had a bad trip up until the last two times I've done it. And because it really exacerbated a lot of my depression and my grief and my sadness and anger. And I was in the midst of a trip being like, oh gosh, like I'm fucking mad at my mom, or I'm mad at the business, and it brought up a lot of things that instead of being giggly with my friends and being like, stupid jokes, it now was like it was like tearing me up. But through that, I cried a lot and then went to giggling, and then it was like this mass catharsis. So I'm curious how it has been for you as a tool for grief and depression. Like, are you like in what the catharsis feels like for you?
Sure. I got into them pretty late. The first time I did mushrooms was on a buddy's bachelor party when we were like 30. And that's like really I've only done them a few times in like a party setting. Otherwise, like pretty quick, they just started like experimenting them for like soul searching and trying to treat depression well before Ben had passed away. So I just like take a bunch of mushrooms by myself, and it just always felt like it alleviated. I would sometimes say to my wife, like when they wouldn't hit as hard as I thought they would, I'm like, I just feel like I don't have depression right now. I just feel good. I feel open. Like I'm picking up on little things like when I was a kid of truly just like the way the sun is bouncing off the grass and being like, Jesus, that's beautiful.
Yes.
That is so beautiful. That is so fulfilling. Just like the warmth I feel from the air, that's enough. Everything I'm looking at, like this angle, I'm like, God, you can't get any better than that. Then I look at that angle, I'm like, that's just as good. It's
Look at these angles.
Look at all these angles.
Yeah.
And then when Ben passed, a buddy of mine in LA who's a funny comic, grows his own mushrooms, and I got some from him, and it's truly not enough time to even try to explain it all, but we got an Airbnb out in the desert in Joshua Tree, and I did the like intense.
This is porn. This sounds like porn.
Yeah,
I know.
I did like a 7-gram trip.
Oh,
7 grams?
heroic.
I've only done 3.5 and I was talking to the wallpaper, so I can't imagine 7.
I had,
7.
honestly, for a few minutes, I was telling my wife, I'm like, pretty sure I'm a born-again Christian, like, and then came down from that. But I know it sounds nuts, but I had the experience that you read about of going out into the desert and having like, you feel like, oh, I'm interacting with God right now, whatever God is. And it really opened me up because I didn't go out. That wasn't the intention. My whole thing was, I was like, I just want to be open to signs. I don't want to be like, oh, look, a bird.
Signs from your brother?
Yeah, I just want to be open because people are like people will assign anything to be like, oh, look, it was a sign and it's a positive one. It's just like, okay, well, I get wishful thinking and I don't want to negate that. I just want to be open to it. And then it was just such an intense night where so many wild things happened. And my wife, there's the first time she tried mushrooms, she took just a little bit. She was there with me and she saw and felt some of the stuff I did, and it was...
Ooh, I have chills.
It was insane. It was insane.
Can you give an example?
Yeah, and we need to do a follow-up episode.
I want to
Sure.
Yeah.
Truly, I wrote everything down that night and then read it back. And it's like 5 pages of thing after thing after thing. There was this moment where we just went out to we just walked down the path to watch like the sunset in the desert, and we were just talking about like kind of both feeling a little defeated, like I don't know if we're gonna get this signs thing. And then I just started talking to my wife and my dog, who's very much, he's a great dog, but he's very fussy. If we're standing still too long, he's gonna let you know like this is bullshit.
Yeah.
Someone play with me. And he just sat there. He's like truly, he comes with us sometimes on our little mushroom trips. And he's like our little spirit guide. It's wild. Like there will be times where like, you know, when you're on mushrooms and you're kind of like, you're processing something.
Yeah.
And he will just stop and I'll be like, okay, let's go, but let's keep moving. And he won't move. And then I'll like sort through it. And then all of a sudden he's like, okay, time to go.
Wow.
He picks up on it. But anyways, I'm sorry if I butcher explaining this way, but I just started like talking to nothing. But then it just became me like talking to Ben and just talking. I was just like out loud just saying like my anger towards him for it, my frustrations. And it sounds so nuts. But honestly, it's just a light but warm wind picked up. And Kaylee, my wife, when she's on, she very much picks up on like colors and energies and stuff. And she was just like, and some people their eyes might just be rolling in the back
No,
of their
this
head.
is
But
for those are the people who have never tried mushrooms.
Yeah, exactly.
Those are the
Open your
people who
minds, man.
We're writing the edge of our seat.
AKA the losers.
Exactly. But truly, it just felt like, it's like I just felt been there. And it's like I could just feel him. He was there. He's like, I'm here. Let me hear it, man. And then it was the first of hours of one thing after the other. And if you need to do a follow-up, would love to. But the trippiest thing, so the sun's like completely gone down. We're walking back, and all of a sudden it just like hit me. I don't know to what extent. This was the moment where I was like, oh, I'm pretty sure I'm a born-again Christian and Jesus is talking to me. But I was just felt this like assuredness of like, it's not a good thing he died, but he's okay. He's some way, somehow, he's out there, he's okay. I look to my wife and I put my hand on her shoulders and I'm like, Ben's okay. And then when I say her face lit up, it's not like she smiled. Literally, a flash went across her face and she like followed it and she's like, did you see that? And I'm like, didn't have to. I saw it in your face. And literally, it was like this flash went across the sky. And the next morning, we were looking.
I have full goosebumps.
So do I.
Full goosebumps.
Full
You do?
goosebumps.
Oh,
Yes.
It's crazy.
Oh my God.
This flash went across the sky and I saw it go across her face. And we were like looking the next day for like, was there like a meteor shower we didn't know about? Nothing. And it was just like thing like that. After that, I started purging. I did, my nose wasn't plugged up. Like I literally was like kneeled over and I had like the thickest, sorry, this is gross, like disgusting snot all of a sudden just coming out and like coughing up this stuff. And I just felt this like, I was just like, I felt this thing that I don't think you can put into words. And I've done a lot of reading about mushrooms. They talk about that. There's no language for it. It might make sense in your head. You can't express it in words. But I just felt this thing that I definitely was an atheist before that. And after that, I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty certain there
Something.
is
Happening.
a lot more at play here than we're aware of. And now when I do mushroom trips, it's not always like that, but I do feel this kind of connectivity to it.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I completely agree. And
Yeah?
oh my gosh, I know we have to wrap-
we have to. We have. I know.
Yeah.
Here's what we're gonna do. Here's what we're
Yeah.
gonna do. We're gonna have you back for a
Sure.
special mushroom episode
love it.
because
Yeah,
this
we need
is
a
a
shroom
whole
episode.
other 2-hour conversation.
Totally.
But we do unfortunately have to wrap it up so we can get to our next guest.
Yes. Okay.
And we'll do our rapid
Oh man,
fire.
that was so beautiful.
That was amazing. Thank you for sharing and being
no,
so open
thanks.
about all that. And
yeah, of course.
that was
Happy to talk
so
about it.
so nice. We're gonna just completely shift gears and do insane.
Sure. No, it's
Stupid
great.
question.
Stupid rapid fire as a palate cleanser. Okay, you ready?
I am.
Here we go. From Ben in the desert to this.
Ready, set, go.
Favorite pizza topping.
Pepperoni.
What's your biggest impulse buy at CVS?
Protein bars.
What chore do you absolutely hate doing?
Dishes.
Lake or ocean?
Oh,
Would you rather eat a whole head of raw garlic or half a raw onion?
half a raw onion.
Hot climate forever or cold climate forever?
Hot climate forever.
A famous politician just slipped into your DMs asking if you can make out. Who is it?
Justin Trudeau.
Power Rangers or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Ninja Turtles.
Kill, fuck, marry. Hint of lime tortilla chips, salt and vinegar, Lay's original.
I'm sorry, can you repeat those?
Yep. Kill, fuck, marry. Hint of lime tortilla, salt and vinegar, Lay's original.
Mary Lay's original, fuck the lime tortilla, kill the other one.
Kill, salt and vinegar. All
Yeah,
right.
definitely
Yeah.
slaughter
Okay.
salt and vinegar. For
Right?
Sure. Yeah.
What is the capital of California?
Sacramento.
Well done from a
Nice.
Canadian.
Yes, Canada. Oh, Henry, thank you so much. Where can our lovely listeners follow you at?
You can follow me at Henry Sir Comedy on Instagram. And I also would like to plug that my brother's band, they're called Worst Days Down, and he recorded new songs for a new album a week before he passed. And they're coming out with a new album called Stay Innocent, and there's a single called Carol and Cordova. It's a great song, but if you could listen to Worst Days Down music, they have an album called Elsewhere too, and it's really great.
We're going to
We're
link
gonna
all
post
of that.
all of that.
We're linking
Yeah,
all of that.
Of course.
Buddy, we love you.
Love
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much
course.
for being here.
Of course, thank you.
Hell yeah.
amazing.
Love that. Okay.
All right, everyone, please like and follow and subscribe. We need those likes and follows and subscribes. Please, we love you all. Thank you so much for listening,
Bye.
and have a good day. Bye.